Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Marcos Villegas for Fight Up TV, powered by stagefront VIP, being joined with Steven Espinoza, the head of Showtime Sports. Steven, big slate fights. This one, I think one that fans have been wanting to see for a while, but it took a little while to get over the line. What happened there?
Just the usual thing. Look, there were some morale negotiations, there's some andrade negotiations. You know, everything worked out. I mean, they're both great fights. They're both going to happen probably at some point. And, you know, it just, you know, sometimes one deal comes in quicker than others.
I'm glad you brought up morale. Yeah, what happened with that?
Just, you know, couldn't get on the same page for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's a little bit of everything. But look, Morel's still at the top of the division. He's still somebody that, you know, these guys are going to need to see at some point.
How often? Usually most of the time it's money, huh?
A lot of the times, yeah. I mean, it's weight, it's, you know, it's weight. Sometimes it's, you know, the privileges or silly stuff, but most of the time it's money.
with this fight, I don't know, man. It's interesting because Andrade is a highly skilled guy, but some people have suggested, like, hey, maybe he's diminishing a little bit because he hasn't been able to put away the last two guys.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got good power, but you're right. If you're gonna be really picky, you know, he hasn't finished, you know, some of the guys. But look, he's a big guy. Like you look at how he looks at 168, and you wonder how he ever made 154. So there's really no result in this fight that would surprise me. They're both, you know, really skilled. I think the simple way to look at it is you've got Benavidez' offense, you know, and his activity level, which is unmatched in the sport. I mean, there's no one like David Benavidez in the sport of boxing.
So the winner, we're hoping, Steven, that at some point they face Canelo. I know he has one of the three fights already in the bag, two more left. Where does the winner fit in those fight number two, fight number three for Canelo?
Well, look, Canelo's been is very disciplined about things. He doesn't really discuss anything beyond the fight in front of him. And even, you know, he even said after the fight, he's like, guys, like, let me enjoy this, let me rest. So, you know, we don't really know what's in his head, but you look at his history, he's never had a problem taking tough fights. And usually takes fights tougher than people even suggested he take. But right now, I think, look, the winner of this fight is in a really good position. You know, it's arguably, I mean, for my money, the winner of this fight is probably the biggest fight, you know, for Canelo going forward. I know the B-bell rematch, you know, has, you know, people excited. I know there are some people excited about the Crawford rematch. The winner of this fight, to me, seems like the most natural one, but ultimately it's up to Canelo.
Yeah, there's so many options right now, and Crawford is still like you said you feel the winner of this fight is the biggest fight, but I don't know, I think the Crawford fight, even though it sounds freaking crazy, could be the biggest fight. Is there any reservations on your end putting that fight because of the weight classes, because of what we saw with Jermell and Canelo?
You know, they're different fighters, but sure, it's something that's going to be, we'd have to address in the marketing and in the promotion, because, you know, there are some who will say, look, we already saw a small guy, you know, go up and try to face Canelo, and how's this going to be any different? Now, look, Crawford is not Jermell. There's a range of different differences, but the weight is a bigger challenge even than it would be for Jermell. There's no way around that.
Does it make you hesitant to put on that fight, or do you still think you guys, with the right marketing, could be able to push that and sell that?
You know, look, we try to gauge the market and see what fans, you know, want the most and what's going to be the most satisfactory product. So I don't think there's a bad choice between the two.
Oh, yeah, Benavidez and Canelo and Crawford and Canelo. If you do both of those, I think you guys are going to hit pay-per-view wise.
Yeah, I think that's right. So the question is, you know, what makes sense? I mean, look, there's some mandatories out there that, you know, start to make noise. So there's a lot of potentials. But you know what, I think Canelo at this point in his career wants the biggest events, the most exciting events possible. And, you know, we'll see what happens in this fight. I think this will go a long way to figuring out what the next fights are for Canelo.
If David has a sensational win, I would imagine that that's the next natural one then, it would be with Canelo, right?
If David has an impressive win, then I think there's a ton of momentum behind that fight, and that, I think, jumps to the top of the list in terms of which is the biggest fight.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And, you know, I'm impartial, but fans have been wanting that fight with David for a really, really long time. Whoever wins, whoever's the best win the fight. You know, that's for sure. What's the status of Spence and Crawford? Is
still in discussions. Still got some details to work out. You know, not going to happen, this year at this point. So
That December thing was not gonna.
yeah, I mean, it's there, but I'm not sure anyone felt really pressured to do that. But I think we're getting to mid-October, so pulling off a December pay-per-view where you don't have it in place by mid-October is a challenge. So I think conversations will continue and probably look at 2024.
Is this true? Like, I read that Crawford can choose the weight. Is that accurate? Because he won the fight.
Not completely. Not completely. I mean, there are some other parameters I don't want to get into, but it goes into it. The idea behind the phrase is like weight shouldn't be. If there's a legitimate difference, one guy is legitimately going to 154, one guy is legitimately staying at 47, then that's a reason a fight can't be made. But weight can't be used as an excuse and sort of say, I don't feel like it. Like, I'll go up for this guy, but not another guy. So, that's sort of the spirit. The language is very, more precise and very definitive. But the concept is, out of fairness, is, let's not be selective. Can't say, hey, I won't go up for this guy, or I won't go up for the rematch, but I'll go up for this guy. That's not the spirit of it.
But contractually, it has to happen, the rematch. Or if one or the other chooses not to, then we won't have a rematch.
I mean, if there's there are some conditions in which it wouldn't happen. Well, I don't want to get into specifics of it. Yeah.
You get into one specific?
Well, I mean, weight is one thing. If they can't agree on weight, that's it. But money is set. All the other parameters are set. Weight is one of the few examples where that could be the obstacle.
And finally, the elephant in the room. Obviously, I'm sure that you've been asked about it. Is it true that next year it's only pay-per-views from Showtime, and then after that there's no more programming because of the Paramount thing, the merger that's happening?
Yeah, I'm smiling because everyone's got an inside source. I'm not saying you. I'm just talking about social media in general. Everyone's got an inside source. Everyone's an expert. Everybody, has a source who's telling them exactly what's going on, none of which is accurate. Now, look, there's a budget process and there are things to be discussed, and there's a media business that's a lot of transformation, and there's a Paramount Corporation that is under financial pressures like all media companies nowadays. So, all of that has to be discussed. But, all this stuff, Tank's going on this pay-per-view platform, Tank's fighting Thurman, I know because, I've been on conference calls and I know what's being said. I've yet to read anything that's accurate in terms of what's actually going on internally, in terms of the conversations and the kind of criteria that are being discussed and what are the kind of elements. So the reality is the future hasn't been determined yet. I think it will be shortly. But, until someone tells us different, we're going to continue doing what we've been doing. Because at the end of the day, as much as, Showtime Sports has a strong brand, and I think a lot of people respect what we've done, what people care about at home, what the fans really care about is watching the best fights. They don't care about the executives like me. They don't really care about the networks. They're just saying, get me the best fights. So until somebody tells us differently, we're going to continue delivering the best fights in the sport, like this one here.
You said it's yet to be determined. Is it dependent on how well this year goes with you guys?
No. It's everybody's, that's one of the conspiracy theories that say, that's why this has been such a massive year, because in trying to prove something, no. It's not the way the metrics work. It's not the way the analysis works. So, no, I mean, there's nothing pending on this event or December event or anything overall. It's a much more holistic, bigger sort of analysis.
It's still something I would imagine because, like you mentioned, I've heard that too from like other streaming platforms that, hey, they're cutting budgets, that they're scaling back a lot of things, and it's not just a specific thing. It's a whole media landscape thing that the future is kind of gray, foggy, like you're not really sure what's going to happen in the next year.
Well, I mean, I think you can say that about a lot of platforms. I mean, there have been a number of budget cuts at ESPN, and I think there's some interesting things going on over there that are not being reported that are very relevant to the sport of boxing. So I think, it's interesting,
What's going
on? Well, you're a reporter, you can chase down the lead.
You just mentioned it, so let me know.
It's another story. It's something.
Well, let's break it right here, Steven. Like, let us know what you hear.
I think. Look, but I think you're absolutely right. It's not limited to boxing. It's not limited to sports. There's a lot of transformations going on, throughout the industry. A lot of people are reevaluating their budgets on all levels.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Maybe because I don't know if this falls under your responsibility or not. Like Bellator going away, people think like, oh, that's like the warning sign that now another sports property that maybe boxing will go away too.
It's sort of unrelated. That was a decision that was made over a year ago for sort of independent reasons. And look, boxing business is very different from MMA. I mean, MMA, obviously you have one very dominant league, that's in there that makes things very tough to compete with. I mean, so tough that, there are people suing over how tough it is to compete. So, I understand people want to connect things, but, a lot of these are unconnected things that if people look hard enough, they'll try to find a connection, but there isn't.
And leaving you with this last thing, you could say whatever you want. Friend Dana saying that you guys bumped up the production for the last few programming that he noticed, and he's been saying a lot of things. Have you at all listened to that? You're like, what the hell? What are you talking about?
That's absolutely. First, I hadn't heard him say that.
Yeah, he said like 2 weeks ago, like, oh yeah, that last pay-per-view, they tried to bump the production and stuff like that. I could tell, like, I know this stuff.
He is 1,000% wrong. Like every time he opens his mouth, he says something more ridiculous and more crazy. As a matter of fact, the production on the last one was smaller than usual because there was an event in the venue the night before, which really affects how we can prepare. So when we're loading in for a big pay-per-view the day of, starting at 3 a.m., that is going to, we have to sort of pull back on certain things because we don't have as much time to set up all the bells and whistles. So actually it just sort of demonstrates he has no clue what he's talking about in production, because in reality, if anything, the last one was a little bit smaller. I mean, you could see it at the entrance, for example. Like the entrance wasn't as big as the last Canelo fight we did, because simply put, when we're scrambling just to put everything up and get the lighting up in time, some things don't happen. So no, 1,000%. We did not make anything bumped up and did not make it bigger. In fact, it got much smaller. No, not much, but meaningfully smaller the last one, just because of the constraints of load-in.
Crazy little sport we're in, huh?
Crazy. Every time he opens his mouth about us, it surprises me. I don't know what his obsession is.
Steven,
good
chatting. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Marcos Villegas here in Los Angeles, Fight Him TV.